A tragic accident or revenge from the mafia? As their family house burned to ashes, only one thing was clear to George Sodder: 5 of his children were missing. In one night, tragedy and conspiracy shrouded the Sodder family. This is the story of a fateful blaze, turning into one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. Hello everyone, and welcome to our latest episode. Today, we talk about the Sodder children, whom the world left for dead until a cryptic letter suggested that their fate may have taken an entirely different course. Before we dig in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more nail-biting stories, and remember to click on that little bell so that you'll never miss a story. It was Christmas Eve in 1945, and the Sodder children wanted to stay up later than usual to play. George and Jenny Sodder were the loving parents of 10 children. Their oldest son had gone to fight in the Second World War. The remaining 9 children were enjoying Christmas Eve, playing games and exchanging gifts. Around midnight, the phone started to ring. Jenny picked it up, and a woman asked for a name she didn't recognize. Jenny told the caller that she had reached a wrong number. On her way back, Jenny noticed that the children had left the lights on and the curtains open. Blaming their clumsiness, she went back to bed. Around 1 a.m., Jenny woke up again. She heard something hit the house roof with a bang, followed by a rolling sound. She listened intently, but everything was quiet. It was Christmas Eve after all. The celebrations did get raucous sometimes, but the night's mysteries were just beginning. Jenny awoke again about an hour and a half later, this time alerted by a smell of smoke. George's office had caught fire. She shook her husband awake and fled their house. The house was soon engulfed in flames. Watching their home burn down, George and Jenny had only one concern. 5 of their 9 children were still inside. The events that followed led these two devastated parents to believe that the fire may not have been accidental. When they tried to call the fire department, the line was dead. Later, they found out that their phone lines had been cut, although a few hours before the fire, the phone was working. George was desperate to save his children. He went to get the ladder to rescue his children from the 2nd floor, but the ladder was gone. With every passing second, the flames grew stronger. George had to think fast. He decided to drive his truck underneath the window and climb on top to reach his children. But neither of his trucks, which were working well the day before, would budge. Even the neighbors tried to call the fire department, but no one could get through to an operator. The surviving family members watched helplessly as the flames wrapped around their house. The fire lasted for about 45 minutes. By the time the volunteer firefighters arrived in the morning, there was nothing left to be saved. The house had collapsed, taking away the children's lives with it. Or so they thought. George didn't have the heart to build another house over the place where his children had burnt to death. Death certificates were issued, and 4 days after the fire, he bulldozed the remains of his house, intending to make a memorial for his children. But soon, George and Jenny began to see signs that the fire may not have been accidental, which meant that there was a chance that the children were alive. What alerted them was the official reason for the fire: faulty wiring. Jenny knew that this could not be the reason. The lights had been on just moments before the fire, and their Christmas lights had remained on throughout the first half of the fire. The cut phone lines were another red flag. Then, one of their neighbors had seen a man stealing a block and tackle used for removing car engines. Was it possible that he tampered with George's trucks? Even more strange was the fact that the thief admitted to cutting the Sodder's power lines. George and Jenny were skeptic about their children's bodies being burnt to ash. They found out from the local crematorium that human bones remain even after bodies are burned at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours, and the Sodder house was burnt in a mere 45 minutes. Jenny even tried burning small piles of animal bones to see if they would be consumed entirely. None ever were. A few months later, Jenny found a small, dark green, rubber ball-like object in a nearby bush. Seeing this, George remembered Jenny's account of hearing something hit their roof before the fire. Joining the dots, he concluded that a hand grenade had started the disastrous fire. George had good reason to believe that he had enemies who wanted him dead. He was an Italian immigrant strongly opposing the dictator Benito Mussolini. His vocal criticisms had led to some serious arguments within his community. Even after Mussolini was executed, George's criticisms left lingering feelings of hate. The pieces started falling into place. George recollected on how. A few months before the fire, an insurance salesman had threatened George, saying, "Your house is going up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed. You are going to be paid for the dirty remarks you have been making about Mussolini." Hopeful that their children were alive somewhere, George and Jenny began the search. They hired a private investigator to uncover the truth when the local authorities were suspiciously dismissive on the matter. They learned that the insurance salesman was part of the coroner's jury that ruled the fire an accident. They also found out that Chief F.J. Morris had placed beef liver amongst the remains of the house to convince the Sodders that their children had died in a fire. The official efforts to resolve the case led to a dead end. Wherever they chased the leads to, they always seemed one step behind. Eventually, state police and the FBI dropped the case and urged the Sodders to lay the matter to rest. But George and Jenny were not ready to give up on their children. They started sending out flyers with pictures of the children. They offered a $5,000 reward for information that would settle the case for even one of them, and the value was soon doubled. They even put up billboards, one at their house and one along Route 60 near Ansted. George continued to follow up leads in person. From Missouri, Texas, Florida to Houston, George followed on any piece of information he could find on his beloved children. In an interview, George admitted sadly that time was running out for them. All they were searching for was some closure, some sort of conviction that they did truly die in that fire, or whatever it is that happened to them. Then came the cryptic letter. Jenny found it addressed to her, postmarked in Central City, Kentucky, with no return address. Enclosed was a picture of a young man in his 30s, his features closely resembling her lost son, Louis. On the back of the photo was written, "Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, LLIL boys, A90132 or 35. What was the meaning of this strange letter? Did it mean that Louis was still alive? The family immediately hired another private detective to travel to Central City and investigate the origins of this mysterious letter. But he never reported back and was never found by the Sodders again. But the picture gave them hope. The Sodders added it to their billboard and even put an enlargement of it over their fireplace. The years went by and nothing more was uncovered. George Sodder died in 1969, but Jenny and her surviving children continued to seek answers. For the rest of her life, Jenny wore black in mourning and tended to the garden at the site of the former house. 20 years later, Jenny Sodder passed away on a quiet day in 1989. The surviving children continued to publicize the case and investigate leads. Along with the Fatesville residents, they theorized that the Sicilian mafia was trying to extort money from George, and the children were taken back to the safety of Italy by someone who knew about the planned arson. The children may not have reached out to protect their family from further harm. Sylvia Sodder, who was 2 years old the night of the fire, is now the only known surviving member of the Sodder tragedy. She continues to keep their story alive, having promised her father to not give up on her siblings. Even 75 years later, she is hopeful that her brothers and sisters are alive and out there somewhere. Could the Sodder children have survived the fire? What do you think happened to them? Let us know in the comments below. and make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. As always, thank you for watching, and see you next time.